One of the historic bodies of water is the Mediterranean Sea. Most of Western culture was born around the borders of this sea. The Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, and many other nations, of course. Many tragedies have taken place around these waters, and a lot of good things too. Yes, this is Caesarea by the sea. The word Caesarea, of course, means Caesar's city. So it was named for possibly Augustus Caesar. It was in the area of where I'm standing, where the Apostle Paul was kept as a prisoner for 2 years. What a remarkable person he was. We sometimes have the man of the year, and next year you've forgotten his name. Sometimes you have the man of the decade, and at the end of the decade you say, which one? Occasionally you have a man of the century, for example, like Winston Churchill, who lays an imprint upon society, blood, sweat, and tears. The world can't forget it. It's indelibly placed upon their minds. And the things that he said and the things that he did are very strong. But this man named Saul of Tarsus, he's a man of the millennia. 2,000 years after his execution at the hands of Caesar, Nero Caesar. He is remembered stronger this moment than he was 2,000 years ago. His writings are read by more people on planet Earth, possibly than any other person that has ever lived. No doubt, the morning that Nero said, "This indigestible Jew, I'm tired of it. My mother-in-law belongs to his sect now. My cousins belong to his sect." He's writing letters all over the empire saying, the saints in Caesar's household greet you. I'm weary of this. Says, time for him to die. Says, after all, I'll execute him today, and tomorrow the world will forget he was ever born. 2,000 years have drug past. There's nothing left but ruins of those days. And we do remember this man, Saul of Tarsus. We name our boys Paul. And we name our stray dogs Nero. It's amazing how you can lose your importance in 2,000 years. And the day you speak things, the world may change. What was so great about this man? Well, in the book of the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 26 and verse 19, the grand old man, because he was making his last journey to Rome at this time, he was even calling himself Paul the Aged. He said after a speech that involved at least 2 governors, Felix and Festus, with all their gracious ladies, with their beautiful taffeta dresses, sparkling jewels, they were ordered to come to a place called the Pavement, where there were judgments made. And the word says here in Acts that the notable people of the city were invited. And the military generals, they were invited. You know, it was really a day right here. It's amazing how you can come back to a spot where history was made At the end of his discourse, this mighty man said, King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision. There's strength in those words. There's destiny in those words. They laid stripes upon his back. They stoned him with stones. They beat him with rods. They left him for dead. They put him in prison in stocks. And yet he says, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision. Chapter 26 here, verse 12 and 13. It says that he left Jerusalem under the auspices not of the Roman government, but of the hierarchy, the great rabbis. He had put as many people in prison as he could find. He had scattered the church until they were all over this part of the world. He had made what he called havoc of the church. So he thought he'd try another area, Damascus. He had heard that there was quite a move of the mighty God up there, and many people had become Christians. So he said, I'll go there. So with the brilliant young rabbis around him, with their special rabbis' hats on, special rabbis' coats, just the right length, there's such special rabbi shoes and stockings. He was one of them. And one of the top ones, too. With a great sheaf of papers under their arm. They left Jerusalem. Had to ride over 100 miles from Jerusalem up to Damascus. And as they were nearing Damascus, they might have been on the road 2 or 3 days. Paul says here, I think it's verse 13, King Agrippa, there was a light that came from heaven brighter than the noonday sun. And it knocked us off of our horses. We were all on the ground, wallowing around with our beautiful black jackets messed up and our fur hats on the ground. And he said, I heard a voice from heaven saying, why do you persecute me? And I responded, who are you, Lord? He says, I'm Jesus that you persecute. He didn't know that. He thought Jesus died on the cross and was gone, you see. And yet he was alive now. He said, get up off the ground. It's amazing where God can put you when he wants to. Go into the city. He was already blind now, he couldn't see. It'll be told you what to do, and what things you shall suffer for me. And he says, I have chosen you to be a minister. Can you imagine a rabbi becoming a minister? Woo. He had sat at the feet of Gamaliel. He was headed for being one of the great and notable ones, more zealous than them all. And here was a change taking place. He said, I have chosen you. So you shall turn them from darkness to light. You shall change them from the power of the devil to the power of God, Jehovah. Told him all the things that he would do, that they might be converted unto the Most High God. Then he says, King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to that heavenly vision. Now I want to give you some great truth. Standing in the midst of where it all happened gives you a very strange feeling. They could hear the lathing of the waters of the Mediterranean also, coming in and out just like they did 2,000 years ago. Some of these stones that you see around here was possibly standing at that time. And now, as you can see, they're just has-beens. All passed away. The things of this world do pass away. And the things of God, they remain forever, you see. He screamed before that great group at the place of judgment. Festus was there, governor. Felix was there, governor. The darling ladies like Drusilla was there in the most magnificent clothes. All the high and the mighty of this great area here. They were all there. Yeah, they were there. And he gave his testimony and his witness because he was now on his way to Rome to die. He was not disobedient to the heavenly vision. Do you like truth? There's only one problem in the world. One. You say, what is it? We don't have enough men like Paul. Don't have enough women whose resolute is so great, so powerful, so strong. They'll die by it. I wouldn't want to call us wishy-washy. But I want to say that every person truly born again of the Spirit of God receives from God a vision. Never met a born-again person. But what they had received, some kind of vision from God to teach, to travel, or whatever, to sing, to preach. That they had the heavenly vision. I would possibly estimate that maybe 75% of all believers do not live by the heavenly vision. No, they don't. They don't live by it. What have you done with the heavenly vision? I'm standing in the same area that this giant of the faith made this mighty conclusion. I am not disobedient to what God says do. In my home, in my family, our oldest child was a girl named Anna. As we were quite a church people, she went to church regularly. And one night she said, I saw a vision. What did you see? I saw myself in China. I've been called to China. And everybody said, ooh, whew, amazing. She began to think about it, and she read things about China. She said, I don't want to go to China. Ooh, no. She says, how can I escape going to China? Oh, I know what I can do. I will marry a sinner that doesn't believe in God. He won't let me go to China. And my sister Anna, she did that. She married an unbeliever that didn't go to church. And my oldest sister died prematurely and was gone off the face of this earth. You can't play games with what God tells us to do. Paul didn't play games. He gave himself. You could beat his back. You could shackle his arms. He was resolute. He was not disobedient to the heavenly vision. If we had more people right now that were obedient to what God has said, we could change the world. Preachers are not subject to the obedience of the heavenly vision. This church can say, I'll give you, $5,000 more this year than that church. Oh, yeah, they've got a call right away. I've met thousands of preachers that said, I was called to the mission field. I send out offerings now. Oh, no, you don't. Paul didn't send out offerings to the mission field. He went. And at the termination of that giant ministry, before he got on that boat right around here and sailed toward Rome to the west, he said, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision. Here in the United States, a man that I loved and cared for says, would you have lunch with my wife and I? And I said, yes. He took me to a very exclusive restaurant, he and his wife. And he said, everybody knows what happened in the Philippines. Thousands of people were converted. You have that giant church there with thousands of people in it. And the whole nation was stirred because of the move of God from your ministry. He says, God has spoken to me. He said if I would go to Calcutta, to Bombay, India, that he would do for me what he did for you in the Philippines. A mighty revival, a great church building, thousands of people. His wife sitting there suddenly burst into tears. I'm not going to India. I'm not going to give up my home. I'm not going to give up my car. I'm not going to give up my refrigerator. Oh, I'm not going. She left the table and went and stood in a corner like a little 3-year-old girl, put her nose in the corner and said, I'm not going to India. I'm not going. This great big giant of a man, about 6'4", he lumbers over there and says, now, darling, my baby, I love you so much. You're so sweet. Come now, let's eat our dinner here with Brother Sumrall. Everything's going to be all right. She came and sat down. I was ashamed to be in the restaurant. People stopped eating and watching her, a beautiful woman. India was not mentioned anymore. I followed him carefully because his wife died of cancer and he died of a heart attack. And they don't live on planet Earth anymore. The heavenly vision. You don't play games with God. Thousands of people have cut their lives short on planet Earth out of the will of the Almighty God. What are you going to do with the heavenly vision? What are you going to do about it? God wants you to be obedient to the heavenly vision. We can change this world with the heavenly vision. Look what Paul did. For the last 2,000 years, millions of people have come to God because of his obedience to the heavenly vision. I want you now, with the depths of your heart, to say, I will not be disobedient. When I was dying of tuberculosis in Panama City, Florida, God says, you can live if you preach. And I says, I was dying. I said, I will obey. He healed me in one night of tuberculosis. And I went out. And I've never stopped preaching from that day until this day. I have not been disobedient to the heavenly vision. What are you doing? What are your aspirations? It's the judgment day when God speaks to you. What are you going to say? Oh, I did as I pleased. I went wherever I wished to, but I did not obey you. What are you going to do about it? I urge you. I'm talking from the place where it all began. Somewhere in this area where I stand, the mighty apostle who was in prison here for 2 long years after being captured in Jerusalem in church by the religious authorities. And they wanted to kill him. 40 of them laid in wait to kill him, said they would never eat nor drink till they'd killed him. I guess they're pretty lean now after 2,000 years. You can't kill God's man. You can't kill God's vision. What are you going to do with yours? Please, madam. There are people watching me that you've promised God you would support missions, that you would support Feed the Hungry. You haven't lived up to that vision. You're going to meet God at the great judgment seat of Christ, and you're going to give a report on what you did with what God told you to do. May I urge you, please, to make a new commitment this moment. Get a sanctified spirit within you and say to God, I will always be obedient to the heavenly vision. God is depending upon you. The destiny of the world is depending upon you. Do something about it today. Thank you.